Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a martial art that was developed by the Gracie family. The Gracie family, specifically Helio Gracie, felt that being a smaller person, he was always at a disadvantage in things like boxing and things like kickboxing and all of these arts that depended on quite a bit of strength in order to be able to be successful or do well at the art. And so Helio thought to himself, how do I build something that allows me, a smaller person, to dominate a much larger person? And that's how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was born. The idea behind it was this smaller person needs to be able to take on this much larger person without strength being a factor, to be able to mitigate strength by creating different positions that allow them to move in and out of this stronger person's safety and comfort zone, and that allow them to essentially do circles around a much smaller person. So they developed this art and turned it into something great. You see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the UFC, you see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the wrestling mats now. There's adult programs, kid programs, there's 17 gyms in every city that offer Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because it's blown up and it's gotten so popular. And one thing that I've really discovered through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've been doing it for a long time. In fact, I have my brown belt. It goes white, blue, purple, brown, black. And it takes forever to get a belt. It's not easy. It's not an art like Taekwondo where you can get a belt every couple of months and there's like 13 different ones. It took 2 years to get my blue belt. It took another 2 years to get the purple, another 2 years to get the brown. It's just year after year after year. And what really makes it interesting and what really starts to create a parallel between jiu-jitsu and business, or even life really, is the idea of grit and consistency. Because in jiu-jitsu, it's not the strongest person who's gonna win in the end. It's not the smartest person. It's the person who shows up, the person who can be consistent and show up every day, a few times a week, however often they can, the person who doesn't get injured, the person who doesn't allow other things to prevent them from going in, the person who doesn't allow their own self-doubt to say, I can't do that. That's the person who wins in jiu-jitsu. And guess what? The same thing applies to business. The person who shows up every day, the person who keeps going forward, the person who knows their path and who doesn't allow the idea that they could potentially fail or have fear or anything like that hold them back, is the person who's going to ultimately be successful in business. You see, in jiu-jitsu, you go towards one thing. Your whole goal is to learn the art of jiu-jitsu. You have a handful of techniques you're focusing on all the time, but you avoid shiny thing syndrome. You're not learning a million different things every day. You're honing in on a very specific, very precise set of movements. Same thing in business. The most successful people are the ones who are consistent, and the people who know how to hone in on their target market, who hone in on exactly what they're doing, who hone in on their specific product. The people who fail are the ones who have shiny thing syndrome, who are doing this and that and this, and they're all over the place. They don't even know what to do because there's so many things happening. They're managing so many different processes. And so what we have to remember about success principles and how these principles apply from a martial art into life and into business is consistency and precision in effort are going to be the things that allow us to be successful. These are going to be the things that allow us to consistently move forward. And these are the things that are going to allow us to win long term. You see, most people think in short-term time frames. They think, what can I do in a month, a year? What can I do in 3 months? What can I do in a quarter? They're not thinking, what can I do in 2 years? What can I accomplish in 10 years? What can I accomplish in 5 years? Because it's very hard for us as humans to comprehend that time frame. And that's why in jiu-jitsu, often when people get their blue belt, well, they quit. We call it their retirement belt because that's it. 2 years in, out, done. Same thing in business. Someone will start and it doesn't go magically right off the bat. Or even running paid ads doesn't go magically right off the bat. So they quit. They take a step back. They say it was too hard. It's not for them. It didn't make sense. When in reality, they just didn't make it past that initial hump. They didn't make it past that initial period of hardship. And it doesn't actually get easier. It consistently gets harder. Jiu-jitsu doesn't get easier once you get your brown belt or your black belt. It gets harder because then you have more that you're doing. But you're so precise that you're honing in very specifically to make these little minute details better. Same thing in business. Business should always be boring. You're honing in as you get better and as you make more money and as your business grows. You're not off in the sunset doing 75 different things. You're honing in on your numbers. You're honing in on what's making sense. You're figuring out what's not making sense. And then you're finding these little minute details that allow you to get laser focused on making sure you're doing those little things that are going to make you successful. And that is ultimately what puts us in a place to build something that's going to be successful long term. Anybody can be successful short term. Give them 1-2 years, they can make money, but most people don't stick around. The ones who are winning in the end are the ones who build this boring business and focus on it like it's a jiu-jitsu match. They focus on this long-term application of the method. They focus on being precise and building precision behind what they're doing. And they focus on making sure that their attention stays on that and their attention doesn't get diverted to 75 different places. This is how we're successful. This is how we win. And this is how we should be playing the game. It might not be the sexiest thing in the world. It might not sound like the coolest thing in the world, but this is how you become the last person standing in the world. And I'd rather be the last person standing than not even be around anymore.